welcome to the Festival of Storytellers.
I can't tell you how excited I am to be on right now. It's been a couple of weeks of excitement getting prepared, and I've done a lot of things in my life, but this has got to be close to the top.
Thank you, Reader's Magnet, and thank you, John, for putting this forth and taking the chance on our authors in presenting this out to the world.
I've enjoyed this immensely, Joanne.
Ellie, so have I. Thank you for who you are, and thank you, Reader's Magnet. You all are beautiful, and you've worked so very hard, and we are blessed.
We are.
I thank everybody that's involved with this process, because we know writers need readers and writers need publishers. We thank Reader's Magnet and everybody that's involved. I love Reader's Magnet. They say, we share your stories with the world.
Hello, my name is James TENEYCK. I am the author of the book, The Life and Times of Walter Reuther. And the book, one of the reasons I've given for wanting to write the book, it's The Life and Times of Walter Reuther, An Unfinished Liberal Legacy. And that unfinished liberal legacy is one of the reasons I wanted to write this particular book. I thought that during the liberal ascendancy period, let's say that went from Roosevelt's time on through Johnson, was a time in which many important advancements occurred that benefited the country, like Social Security, the labor movement, the rise in wages for the factory workers, their ability to become middle class, the civil rights movement, Medicare, Medicaid, etc. These are fundamental gains that were made during this period, and we were in a situation at the end of this period where one group of politicians, let's say, was using the word liberal as a pejorative. The other group of politicians weren't defending it, were backing away from the term liberal, and I was very upset. So that was one of the motivations for writing the book. The reason for choosing Walter Reuther as the central figure in the book was because, first of all, he spanned this entire period from the 30s, even into the early 30s, on to the 70s, early 1970, when he died in a plane crash. And he was involved in all of the events and movements, struggles, and so forth during this entire period. He toured Nazi Germany at the beginning of the rise of Hitler. He worked in the Soviet Union for 1 year. He was instrumental in the early movements within the labor union procedure. He became a labor, a major figure in the labor movement. He was involved in wartime planning during the war. He was a figure on the national and international stage during the Cold War. He was involved in the civil rights movement, and he was he involved in a number of other activities, such as and movements such as healthcare. I have a question. Uh, what is the economic system in the United States? What is the economic system in the United States? It's capitalism. We hear people calling socialism. That any kind of a movement where the government tries to help people, like Medicare or Social Security, for instance, that's deemed as socialism. Socialism is government control of the manufacturing process of the industries. That's doesn't happen in the United States. Given the structure of the United States, it's not about to happen. So any attempt to improve people's life by government action is not going to change the basic system in the United States. So that's what is the structure? It's capitalism, and but you know you know unfettered capitalism. I think there's a. Let me just answer that a little more. You have one thought is the untethered freedom of the individual. Uh, um, the other thought is the responsibility of the individual and toward the community. So you have the freedom of the individual and the responsibility toward the community, and those two things have to be balanced if you're going to have any kind of a functioning society. So that's also an aspect of what is the role of the government. What is the role of the citizen? You know. Um, um, we have a democracy. At least we have one. If we can keep it. So the issue of today, for instance, is what is the quantity of this democracy? Who gets to vote? Who is who are we trying to restrict people from vote? What people are we trying to restrict from voting? But it's not only the quantity of the democracy, how many people get to vote, how many people get a real say in the doings of the government, but it's also the quality of the democracy. What is the quality of the debate? What are the qualities that are needed for someone to be a good citizen? To be aware of what the issues are, to discuss them in a reasonable tone, and to participate in the democracy. So I'm as much worried about the quality of the democracy as much as also being worried about the quantity of it. So let's see the next question. What would you prefer? Uh, I'm sorry about my reading and my eyesight. What would you prefer, federalism or democracy? Well, I would prefer democracy. But as I just finished saying, that democracy is something that you have to work to keep. Democracy's been very fragile. Democracy didn't survive, the Peloponnesian War in Athens. Democracy did not survive, the Great Depression in post-World War One Europe, in France, and in particularly in Germany and some of the other European countries. Democracy is very fragile. I say it's like an old friend that's moved, that is at some distance. And if you don't keep up your relationship with that old distant friend, you're going to lose it. So I think the responsibility of the citizen is also to keep up our relationship with democracy. It's not just going to stay there by itself. Okay, so one of the main reasons that brought me to Walter Reuther is because I admired him, and I admired him particularly for his stance on civil rights. I thought that when he appeared on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in the March on Washington in 1963, that he was there for people like me, white people, that wanted to see, the promise of the Declaration of Independence fulfilled. All men are created equal and deserve the same opportunities. I can't say that, in some respects, I grew up in a northern at a town in New Jersey. It was basically a Republican town. My parents were Republicans. I remember in 1952, I was running around the streets with an "I Like Ike" buttons on my shirt and coat, and the town was pretty solidly a Republican town. Uh, you know, the black kids, in our school, uh, we're blacks went to our schools, participated in our sports events. Um, we had black kids that showed up on the playground. This is back in the 50s, before, just at the beginning of Little League, back somewhat before, and then Little League came to town, etc. But we would go in the mornings and organize our own games. And some black kids came. Some black kids were hostile. There was some level of that too. But by and large, uh, you know, we we um, we had social interacting action with black kids. So we thought, we didn't really think about some of the things. I can say that, you know. Uh, I had for the black boys, there was a greater social interaction, more readily acceptance, whereas the black girls, you know, were sort of just in the background more. I don't know exactly why, but that was my impression looking back in those times. And here's another question. Did you experience, uh, you saw someone that was discriminated because of his uh, racial identity and color? Uh, well, I had a couple of situations. One, there was a counselor. My parents sent me to what was a YMCA camp. When I was probably in the uh, junior high, maybe the eighth grade, seventh, eighth grade, or whatever. We were in mostly with kids from my town, Somerville, let's say, in New Jersey. So I knew most of the kids. There was one kid there from a neighboring town. And well, there were two kids there from a neighboring town, one in particular that I remember. And one of the counselors in our, we were separated by age groups. There were like three or four different cabins, or whatever you want to call them, each holding maybe about 10 beds, beds enough, in other words, for 10 people. I think it's 10, no more, but not much less. And one of the counselors in our cabin was black, and there was the two kids that weren't from our hometown. One of them was a bit of a wise guy, a real wise guy, The other guy was a friend of his and sort of followed along. And so there were disciplinary problems. The counselor made the kids sort of hold their arms out, maybe holding rocks for a period of time, to try to get this kid to behave. One of the people from my hometown was, he was upset. He was writing home to his father about the treatment, etc. And so we were there for 2 weeks. At the end of the first week, parents came up. This kid's father and my father, my mother probably too. Um, the, both of the both of the parents, his parents and my parents, well, my father, worked. They were one was a school teacher. My father was a principal in the school, so they know each other well. And the kid's father, I guess, got talking to my father about this treatment and so forth. And the result of it was that the black counselor got fired. So he was sent home. And, I met him, on the playground and that several times later. Nobody said anything, but I felt crap because I did not, I know he must have thought I was writing, bad things about him going back home. I wasn't. I had no problem with this particular person, and I didn't know how to tell him, that it weren't. I didn't have anything to do, and with his dismissal or anything like that. Another time was when we were coming home from. Actually, it was something called Christian Endeavor meeting. It was a group of kids that went to at night to I don't know, discuss the Bible or so forth. There wasn't all that much of that going on, to tell the truth. But when we were coming back, one of the kids had an ash can with the, the firework. I guess it's the next level up in fireworks above a cherry bomb. So he had several of these ash cans, and we stupidly there was a house, a rooming house, catering mostly to elderly people, that was right near our home, on the street where we were walking toward the home. And somebody, maybe all of us, nobody dissented, went in, opened up the side door and threw an ash can in, and the loud noise that went off. So, terrible thing to do. And then we went further above. I could have just walked home, within a block of where this happened. But we walked up to, above where we were. And there was a neighbor of one of the friends, that was somebody that gave us problems, with playing in the backyard. We had one of those above ground pools where we used to hold tag team wrestling matches and in the pool, and, upset the neighbor. So a couple of ash cans were thrown into the neighbor's yard as well. And by this time, the police arrived on the scene. So we saw the cop car coming. We ditched whatever additional fireworks we had in the bushes in the way. And, the police arrived. And, while they were questioning us, they saw a black kid walking up the street in the other direction, and immediately went, to talk to him. We just like kids of that age just beat it. We had the chance. I don't think I don't think they hassled him or too badly, but he drew their attention. He had nothing. He wasn't coming from the direction in which the last of these bombs firecrackers were thrown, and so he deflected the attention from us. The third time was when I was working at the Johns Manville factory. It was asbestos shingles and shingle board, etc. And when the guy that interviewed us, the employment manager, um, said, "Would you mind working in this one building alongside?" The word was the N word was used, and so no, not at all. But this guy was a prominent politician locally too, so there was those kinds of examples. Uh, Talk about uh, as they are being discriminated. I'm sorry. What about Asians? Are they being discriminated in the USA? Uh, the United States is not unique. There's prejudice, beyond the local family, beyond the local community, and so forth that exists in every country and every culture. Uh, yeah, Asians. Yeah, obviously, Asians that are being attacked and yelled at and so forth are being discriminated against. So there is discrimination against individual people of all different races and all different cultural backgrounds. So now, getting back to the choice of Walter Reuther as the subject of my book, he was a hero of mine. So one of the things that happens when you start studying, doing the research, learning more and more about, the main figure in the book, is you find that he's not this idealized figure that that you have for your hero. He's a human being, and he has a lot of human frailties as well. So let's just say that his record in civil rights was mixed. That um, yeah, he was a main advocate for civil rights on the national stage. He marched in several of the demonstrations organized by Martin Luther King. Uh, he was there at Memphis, in the wake of King's assassination. He was there not at the march across the bridge, the Pettus Bridge, where John Lewis and other civil rights leaders and their followers were beaten up by the police. But there was another march that was to take place across the Pettus Bridge, led by Martin Luther King, in wake of that. What happened then was that there was an injunction that was going before one of the federal judge or southern judge. But this was an ally this judge had been an ally of the movement. So what was worked out instead of going the full distance, going from march from Selma to Montgomery, was to just march up to the bridge, have a prayer session or so forth at the bridge, and then go back to the church. And that was worked out in advance so that the civil rights group was not going to alienate this friendly judge. Eventually, a week or so later, the full march did take place, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But they went back to the church. Uh, Reuther and his wife were sending, telephoning back to their daughter in Detroit, about the experience and so forth, and how fulfilling it was in that particular church that evening. But outside the church, one of the people, a minister from New England, I think Boston, was beaten up and died of his injuries. A man by the name of Rob was killed. So violence was occurring outside of that rally as well, and the daughters obviously were frightened. frightened for their parents. They had numerous reasons and numerous occasions to be frightened by the activities that their father was engaged in, and the reaction to some of those activities by, um, labor opponents, criminals, and for activities in the civil rights movement. So that was the situation. Now, why did what was the situation inside the auto workers? That was a more mixed record. Uh, the you know the politics within the UAW, like in many organizations, was factional. Had there were alignments, let's say, between the particular factions, and then there was the politics, to further the cause of your own faction. So the movement to add a black seat on the executive board. Um, Most of the blacks at that time were um, mostly were in the camp of the other side. The side that had Frankenstein and Addis, were the two main um, figures in that particular caucus. So Reuther's group opposed the creation of a black seat. One of the prominent black leaders in the Union, and by the name of Hardin, also opposed it because the way the Union votes were allocated to the board members was not one board member, one vote, but rather the number of votes that each board member had was commensurate with the size of their membership. So the larger the membership of the locals or so forth that a board member represented, the more votes, the larger his number of votes. So this black seat was more of a token. It was only to get the one vote on the board, and so Hardin was opposed. He broke ranks with some of the other main black leaders of that time, and this is now into the mid 40s. Excuse me. The war is still going on while much of the struggles within the Union are taking place. By the time Reuther stood on the stage at the Lincoln Memorial, his stance within the Union was becoming a bit of an embarrassment. We still did not have a black leader on the executive board. The ones that Reuther appointed to the board there was one fellow by the name of Sam. I forget his last name, but he was known to the to the most of the black members of the Union as Singin' Sam, because one of his main events, let's say, was he was part of a singing group that Ford featured on his in some of his television, well, it would be radio programs at the time. So he was sort of divisively, derisively. Sorry, I needed a little bit of water. Regarded as Singing Sam. When it came time to strengthen the black seat on the board, it was already well into the 60s at the time of the 63 March, the 64 civil rights struggle, and they still hadn't had a major figure that truly represented the black voice within the Union. Reuther wanted to appoint James Farmer, who was the head of CORE. He ran into a lot of opposition from his board members because Ruther inherited much of the board that originally sided with Homer Martin. When Martin was left the UAW, or was booted out of the UAW for trying to negotiate a company-friendly agreement with Ford behind the backs of the rest of the union. He lost his position as the president. So a lot of the supporters of Martin flocked to Ruther as opposed to going to Addis and Frankenstein, neither of whom were communists, but had communist backing and represented a more radical element of the UAW. So the board wouldn't accept Farmer. Ruther was a bit reluctant to represent an independent voice like Hardin or Sheffield because the thought was that they were going to be more interested in promoting the civil rights movement than in hoeing the line of the labor movement. So you can't be both the civil rights advocate and a strong labor representative at the time. So that was an argument against, one of the prominent black members of the UAW. They ended up again with, somebody that was more acceptable than Singing Sam, but not truly representative of the black union. Now, at the end of this, I won't go through all of the events of the 40s. Let's start with one. The March on Washington movement was a movement that was started by A. Philip Randolph of the Porters Union. The one black voice, the one prominent black voice within the AFL at the time, and he threatened to bring 100,000 marchers to Washington unless there a guarantee that black workers would not be discriminated against in awarding the wartime jobs. To avert this, Roosevelt issued Executive Order 8802. There was the Economic Opportunity Council was the one nominally in charge of overseeing this, and in Detroit, the enforcement was done by a Colonel Strong, who was very active. Was a strong voice in supporting the rights of the black workers within the plant. Now, Detroit had a history of racial animosity. In the 20s, the Ku Klux Klan was strong in Detroit. They ran a write-in candidate for mayor of Detroit, and this write-in candidate only lost by a couple thousand votes. And the only reason that he lost by a couple thousand votes was because there were a lot more than a couple thousand votes that had misspellings or that were otherwise disqualified, for some irregularity. So, the Ku Klux Klan presence was very strong. One of the other things that happens, with the union, was that once the union gets a foothold into a company, there are a lot of pressure. You get pressure from sources that are looking for a way in. In other words, a lot of temptations for corrupt behavior. Ruther found this out after the Kelsey Hayes strike, when he won, his union won, and received a presence within that factory. And he was somebody that the insurance agent for Kelsey Hayes wanted to deal with. So apparently there was some kind of a kickback arrangements with management at Kelsey Hayes, and the insurance agent came around to ask him if he wanted to be um, brought into this arrangement. He kicked him out. But a lot of other labor union leaders didn't. And so that was one avenue of corruption. After the Ford contract, the service department workers, the service department was basically the enforcers that enforced Ford's rather rigid and rather rigid, let's just call it, discipline within the factory. Okay, now they after the union won a contract with Ford, they had to have special uniforms or so forth, but they were just regular employees. So they tried to usurp power within the union because they could run for a position of the foreman jobs, etc. And try to get a foothold in the union. Uh, the Ku Klux Klan tried to get a foothold within the Union. The president, prior to Ruther, Thomas, was very strong in, not saying that, these bedsheet guys are not going to come into our union, we'll take them on, etc. But they were particularly strong in Packard plant, and the the hate strikes that when black workers were upgraded to work on a higher paying jobs during this period, a lot of the jobs in the back end of the factory that the blacks were confined to dried up or were not part of what was needed in the war production process. So, those people would be either laid off or upgraded into new positions. The upgrading should have been done on a basis of seniority, so that the blacks with seniority would have the same rights that a white with the same level of seniority would have. And that was part of the thing that that Strong and the Economic Opportunity Commission had to enforce and did. At Packard, in particular, it was the most virile of the hate strikes of that period. Strong was able to deal with it. The union dealt with it, but that was part of the ambiance of the work situation during this period. So Randolph called off his March on Washington, or they didn't stop the March on Washington movement. That never went away, but the threatened march during 42, I think, was averted. So that lay dormant until 1963, when it was revived. It was still led by Randolph, and of course King, and the different leaders that were part of that strike. I won't go into it. There were differences within the strike committee. One of the things that Randolph was leery about was involving whites, like Ruther, the clergymen and so forth that were to give the invocations and had some role in the planning of the strike. That the whites would tend to take over and would tend to dominate the black voices that were really behind the strike. Um, that probably was true in the case of Ruther as much as anyway. They changed the venue for the strike from a 2-day strike that would have demonstrations on one day and then would congregate around the Capitol on the second day to a 1-day strike where the venue was going to be centered around the Lincoln Memorial instead of the Capitol. And Ruther provided the speaker system, that would be strong enough to carry the length of the reflecting pool, and provided a lot of the security, that would be part of the group, and so forth. But he was also, there to promote Kennedy's civil rights bill, pending civil rights bill, which a lot of the leaders thought was too weak. John Lewis in particular. So there was a discussion. Lewis wanted to give a much more radical speech than the one he ended up giving. Um, the Archbishop of Washington threatened to withdraw his support for the march and not to show up to give the one of the invocations. And there was a meeting at the stage. The way it was set up, it wasn't decided until the morning of the march. The leadership group was there at the Lincoln Memorial. The Archbishop was at the White House waiting to get word of whether Lewis was going to change his speech or not. And, Ruther forced a vote, whether Lewis was to change his speech or not. The organizing committee, King and Randolph, etc., voted that he should. That the speech was too radical for the time for that particular period in the movement, and so he went with King and. Carson Blake was a Protestant clergyman, very prominent in the World Council of Churches at that stage. So the Archbishop said that if it's okay with Blake, then it's okay with me, and he was given the nod to attend. Much of official Washington cleared out. There was a threat of, people were afraid that this was going to be violent. The Washington Senators baseball team postponed 2 of their games that were scheduled for Washington at that time. The real senators sort of left the Capitol, and and of course the march was one of the most peaceful events, in the civil rights movement, either before or after this event. So the event was inspirational. It was it was peaceful. Lewis's was really the first speaker on the stage, and he still gave a rather a rather forceful speech for the time. In other words, his speech was mostly the revised speech was mostly about people saying to delay, to wait, and we've been delaying a long time. We're not going to wait. He voiced his opposition to the weakness of the Kennedy bill, etc. But the line that would have really triggered a bad reaction among the white audience in particular was removed from the speech. So that's all in the book. And so that was that. And so the next thing that where Ruther was involved on the political stage was the Mississippi Freedom Party, wanting to be seated at the 64 Democratic nominating convention. So there was the regular Mississippi delegation, which was, the South was white segregationists at the time. So there was the regular Mississippi delegation, and then there was the Mississippi Freedom delegation. The leaders of that was the president of the Mississippi NAACP, and the most prominent figure in that was a woman by the name of Hammer, Mary Lou. I'm sorry, I'm blocking on her name. I'll probably come up with it before the end of this, but her. Um, Johnson gave a call to Reuther, who was in the midst of a negotiation with Chrysler. Uh, he had to leave the negotiations, was to come to Washington to try to negotiate an agreement between the regular delegation and the Freedom delegation. But in the meantime, John Connally had, I don't know that he negotiated anything, but he had struck a deal with the real delegation that it would include two people from the Mississippi Freedom Party, namely the head of the NAACP in Mississippi and the white minister that was, the white member of that particular delegation. So not including Fannie Mae Hammer, I think was her name. And I might be, it's close to her name. I for some reason I'm blocking on it. So that, Reuther had to try to convince, the black supporters, King, a man by the name of Bob Moses, a young man, Bob Moses, who was part of the Mississippi Freedom Project, and Andrew Young, the civil rights leaders that were pushing for the inclusion of the Mississippi Freedom Party. Eventually, it got to, a bad situation. He was telling King that how much money that he had supported him for, etc. And, the civil rights leaders didn't really budge. Bob Moses ended up, going out and slamming the door and leaving Hubert Humphrey and Reuther inside. And that was symbolic. That was sort of a slamming of the door. The threat was that if the Mississippi Freedom Party was seated instead of the regulars, then Humphrey would not become the presidential nominee. That would have to be somebody more favorable to the South. So they left Humphrey. Humphrey got his Veep appointment, and he was left inside the room with Reuther after the other black delegates left. Toward the end of the 60s, Reuther was looking for, who was going to lead the Union into their next stage of development. That the people, the original Union members that struck at Flint and, were part of the strikes during particularly the 40s. After the 40s, the contract negotiations usually didn't end in a strike. It was more formalistic ritual that the bounds of what the union could get and what it couldn't were rather set, and so the union had the need, let's say, to ensure the health of the company. The company had to satisfy its workers, and strikes in the 50s, labor negotiations in the 50s into the early 60s usually did not end in strikes or any major disruption of work. At least the auto workers' strikes did not. So the original core of union diehards, the people that really initiated and started the union, were getting old, were more were not the people to carry on after Ruther. Ruther set the mandatory retirement age for his union at 65. At the time of his death, he was approaching 62, so he had maybe 3 more years before he was going to retire. And he was looking for a new core of young people, young activists to take over. Rather than looking at the black workers, and the strength of the black churches, the strength that was already within the black community, he looked at the young radicals in the college in the civil rights struggles, and also the anti-Vietnam movement. The Port Huron statement that was the founding document of SDS was written at Port Huron, which was a UAW retreat place that Ruther supplied to the original group of SDS supporters. And, like some of the black movements, that for instance, SNCC, after John Lewis left, was taken over by more radical voices, Stokely Carmichael, Rap Brown, etc. So a lot of more radical voices came into the civil rights movement. There was Malcolm X, with we don't really want civil rights. We need to set up our own structures and our own, issues without the white involvement. And then there was, and then you had the blacks in the North didn't really get this too many benefits out of the civil rights movement in the South. They already, schools were de facto segregated in some of the northern cities, but there was no legal discrimination. There was no, there was no advance in the conditions that they were working in job discrimination and legal discrimination. There were no benefits. So, the black cities became the black ghettos or whatever, the black sections of the major cities ended up in with riots and in flames at the end of the period of the 60s. SDS, migrated from the likes of Tom Hayden and the founders of SDS. Many of the original SDS members were the children of the UAW leaders. In particular, there was I won't say. That group of student activists gave way to the Weathermen and the more radical elements that were taking over college campuses and setting off bombs. They were not the people to they were not the people that were going to take over jobs in the UAW, go into the auto workers plants, and become the new vanguard of the auto workers. The blacks became disenchanted with Ruther's temporizing, and they formed the TULC, the Trade Union Legislative Committee, I think, which was a more activist group. The people like Sheffield and Hardin. Hardin was older now; he was out. But people like Sheffield and another man by the name of Abner, etc., that were prominent within the UAW, formed the trade union legislative committee. which was more radical. From that grew more radical, groups of black workers. The first one was called Drum, stemmed from a strike at Dodge. So it was the Dodge Revolutionary Union movement. And then there was an L run from another plant of a Revolutionary Union movement. So these caucuses, let's say, developed. The old crowd was out to try to stop whatever influence this more radical crowd had. So there was a situation where when when leaders, let's say, were being elected, a lot of the old retired, mostly Eastern European or Southern whatever based workers came out to support the House candidate, the candidates backed by Reuther, etc. So Reuther was losing influence within the union. He was losing influence within the AFL-CIO. He actually left the AFL-CIO at one point and teamed up with the Teamsters, who was kicked out of the AFL for their racketeering. At this point, Hoffa was in jail. A man by the name of Fitzsimmons was the new leader, and Reuther thought that he could work with the Teamsters and that this would be a more dynamic union that would go out and recruit new members, unlike what was happening. That didn't work. Now, I've managed to dissuade, I guess, any more questions. I'm sorry. I just want to say that to invite you to visit my booth at the fair. What I've posted there are several excerpts from the book to give you a style, a sample of my writing style. And what am I doing, since writing this book? Well, I'm writing poetry. I'm no longer with my site, etc. I'm no longer able to do research or to write any kind of a large manuscript, but I can write poetry. So I have, if I'm going to publish anything in the future, and I would like to, it would be poetry, and I have samples of my poetry there as well. So anybody that's interested in the book, what I've been doing lately, that's the place to check it out. I have a author of the hour interview tomorrow at 11 Eastern time. I invite you to attend that. And I have the last of these live sessions tomorrow at 6. If anyone that's interested, please tune in then. And I think it would be more of just, I would try to invite and answer more questions. Thank you.